In today's show, talking Trailblazers contracts, what the team does with their final two-way spot, and how a t-shirt fulfilled my final wish from Media Day. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we're talking training camp contracts. The Blazers have filled out their final training camp spots with a couple hopefuls, all of which could potentially end up in their final two-way spot. The Blazers have a two-way contract remaining to hand out to join the team. We'll talk about those who's coming to training camp, what they might do and what they have done with two-way contracts in the past. Plus, Chauncey Billups wore a t-shirt that fulfilled my final wish from Media Day, what I was hopeful for to be on the lookout for. I just had to wait one extra day, and it finally arrived. We'll talk about that to close the show. Let's get into the newsy news, which is that there's some dudes who you may or may not have heard of joining the Blazers in training camp. Here's a weird thing that happened yesterday. Let me just walk you through some sort of administrative stuff. During Media Day, like while we're sitting there in the room, in the press room, the Blazers send out like an official press release announcing their training camp roster. The thing was, it had 17 names on it. They're not, that's not the training camp roster. It's just not. Like they send it out. I'm looking at it with a colleague who's sitting next to me, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. It's not even enough players to fill out the NBA roster when it starts, because like you would still need an 18th to get to 3 two-way guys. Like this isn't the roster. What are we doing? And I had mentioned at the time to that colleague that who was not Joe Freeman. I mentioned to the colleague at the time, it's like Joe Freeman reported back, a couple weeks ago that the Blazers had signed this guy Javonte Cook, and last week Michael Scotto reported that the Blazers had signed Alex Reese. So like at least we know of 2 other names that should likely be involved in training camp. What are we doing? And then so that was Monday morning, mid-morning. And then Tuesday morning, the Blazers announced 3 official signings: Javonte Cook, Marjon Beauchamp, and Liam Robbins. Alex Reese not on the press release, is not in training camp. I mentioned when I recorded I recorded a bonus episode on Friday night that I had not been able to confirm the Reese signing myself, that it was reported by Michael Scott of Hoops Hype with very little information in it. It turns out it was indeed an Exhibit 10 contract, and Reese was immediately waived, which means basically they're giving him priority bonus money to make the remix. He basically signed a G League contract. So Reese not in training camp, but will be with the remix. And the Blazers add 3 players: Javonte Cook, Marjon Beauchamp, and Liam Robbins to the training camp roster. So who are these gentlemen? Let's talk about it. Javonte Cook was, again, like I said, originally reported by Joe Freeman of the Oregonian back in September 15th that the Blazers had agreed to an Exhibit 10 deal with Cook. An Exhibit 10 deal is a training camp contract. How it works is you basically you sign these deals, you come into camp, and if you either sign with the team on a 2-way deal, you get guaranteed money on that contract, which is otherwise non-guaranteed. Or if you sign with the team's G League team, you get some guaranteed money by signing with the G League team. So it's kind of just like a way to prioritize guys joining either your minor league system, although it's not a true minor league system. Once you join the G League, you literally can sign with any team. It's a very stupid system the NBA currently has, but it's a way to prioritize guys and get them in your building if you want to for like 2 weeks, right? Bring them into training camp for a couple weeks. Cook, I'll go quickly through him because we've already done sort of a breakdown of who he is. 6'6", 185 wing. He's 26 years old. Played D2 ball at Mars Hill, which is like a small Division II school in Asheville, North Carolina, outside of Asheville, North Carolina, and then at Winston-Salem State in the Dash. And he went undrafted in 2022, and then he spent the last 3 years in the G League, first with the Iowa Wolves, and then most recently with the Oklahoma City Blue. Last year with Oklahoma City, he averaged 17-5. That's 17 points, 5 boards, 3 assists, and a steal in 28 minutes. Didn't shoot well from 3. He's kind of like a toolsy wing with not a lot of offensive juice. The thing about G League guys is like, while the scoring numbers pop, like, oh, he scored a bunch, like almost no one who gets called up from the G League is going to be asked to score a bunch. So while that is the thing that would get me to notice you, I'd be like, wow, leading the G League in scoring. I think like, that is not necessarily the thing that like no one's going to get called up from a G League from a G League job to the NBA and be like, we need you to score nonstop. It's like you're going to be asked to do role player stuff, shoot and defend. So like it's more of like those secondary complementary skills and how many secondary complementary skills can you sort of bring to the table. So like Cook seems to have those tools, although he is yet to make his NBA debut at 26, kind of floating in the G League. Do with that what you will. But I will say, seems like they gave him the money first. They committed to him first among these players. So if you think that matters the way the Blazers do business, at least circle Cook's name. The name I'm most familiar with is Marjon Beauchamp, so we'll close with him. But Liam Robbins is a big man, 7-footer, 250 pounds, spent last year on a two-way deal with the Milwaukee Bucks. He played, his classic two-way guy he was not quite a G Leaguer, so only played 13 games with the Wisconsin Herd in the G League, but he was like not actually good enough to appear regularly with the Bucks, right? He appeared in 13 games with the NBA, truly like right in the middle, right? We need you because there's just how many like 7-foot, 250 dudes who can run up and down an NBA court are there in the world, but like not enough to play regularly on a team that's competitive. Liam Robbins he played 5 seasons. He went to Drake, Minnesota, and then finished at Vanderbilt in the for the final 2 years, 21-22 and 22-23 seasons. And his final year in college, he was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. He was first team All SEC. He's like, he's big, right? He's a 7-footer. And I think in that conference being in the SEC in 2023, getting that level of recognition means you're like a pretty darn good college basketball player. He just hasn't played very much in the pros. He's played 57 total minutes in 13 games for the Bucks. Like that's very little time. He's taken 8 shots in his 57 minutes. He's 2 of 8 from the floor, 0 of 2 from 3, 2 of 6 from 2. He's made 5 of 10 free throws. And then just looking at his numbers, this doesn't say anything, but a funny thing that I'm looking at his numbers per 36, he's averaging 3.8 turnovers and 5.7 fouls in per 36. He would be very, I think his minutes would be loud. I'm going to assume, just without having watched him, that some of those turnovers, the 3.8 turnovers, are moving screens, which would lead to your fouls per 36 being so high. So Robbins, Javonte Cook, and then the last name that the Blazers added to their training camp roster today is Marjon Beauchamp, who is I know who he is. He was a former first-round pick, the 24th pick in the 2022 NBA draft, Marjon Beauchamp, who just never caught on with the Bucks. Drafted by the Bucks in 2022, but he's the Northwest Zone. I mean, he's from Yakima, Washington. Shout out to Yakima's own beautiful Central Washington. But before he left Yakima and moved to Seattle and played high school ball in Seattle, looking at his sort of Wikipedia page, to be quite frank, he played for all the big high schools in Seattle. Nathan Hale, Garfield, Rainier Beach. He probably should have gone to Eastside Catholic to sort of round out the quartet, but his senior year he transferred to Dream Christian in Glendale, Arizona. He was the class of 2019. That's the same high school that Shaedon Sharpe actually finished his high school as, kind of a little basketball factory, right, for high-level players. And by the end of his high school career, Beauchamp was a 4-star, like a consensus 4-star guy. At one point during his junior year, I believe he had some 5-star ratings, 4-star guy, but he was, at the time, he's graduating high school in 2019. The summer of 2019, and he's going to forego college and join this prep academy in San Francisco. But then COVID hits, and because of California's gym restrictions, they couldn't go work out in public gyms. So it just kind of fell apart, the training program he was working for. So he goes back to Yakima and he plays community college ball at Yakima Valley Community College. Didn't play a ton, but balled out in the community college level, had a 50-point game in the community college level. And then the following year he signs with the G League Ignite and for the 21-22 season. And then he gets drafted by the Bucks. Fun little journey from Yakima to the pros, right? Like shout out to Yakima Valley College, baby. Gets drafted by the Bucks. He just hasn't been very good in the pros. He got the most playing time he got as a rookie because they're kind of invested in him. And he's just like, from I haven't watched him up close, but I have. In fact, he played with the Bucks. He ends up getting traded to the Clippers, and when the Bucks traded him to Los Angeles in exchange for Kevin Porter Jr., played 3 games for the Clippers, and then at the end of last year played 6 games for the Knicks, just kind of floating around signing 10-day deals. I can't say that I watched a single minute of him with the Clippers and the Knicks. That would be, I did not know he was a Knick. That's a surprise to me. Very surprising to see that on all the Google images. But with the Bucks, like to me, he's just like a dude who just like doesn't have an offensive game yet. Interesting defensive profile. Like, he's about to turn 25, 6'6", 200 pounds, like interesting defensive wing. I want to talk about what the Blazers might do with this two-way spot. In light of Beauchamp, who's the player I know the most about, let's talk about that in the second segment. Join me there, won't ya? First, though, let us talk about FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. So, any way you want to wager, you can do that with FanDuel. There's so many ways to play. You can build parlays tied to player props. You can bet money lines and point spreads before the games happen. Or you can bet live lines during games. If you miss the start of games, you can get in there and watch all of your NFL action and bet them live as it happens. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com today to get started and download the FanDuel app. All right. So what are the Blazers going to do with this two-way spot? If I had to guess right now, like I said, I think if you're scoring at home, like the person that they agreed to first and gave the money to first seems to be Javonte Cook, although they officially made the signings today, but they happened beforehand. And there must have been some sort of order of operations why they had to wait to announce their full training camp roster. I just wanted to walk you through the funny administrative thing where it's like, well, this is incomplete. We need to learn more. And then we've learned more. So Cook and Beauchamp and Robbins they're into training camp, and there's an open two-way spot available. Blazers have 15 roster spots spoken for. There's no NBA jobs spoken for, but there's no NBA jobs available. They're all taken, but each team is allotted 3 two-way contracts, which are essentially minor league deals for NBA players. They're non-guaranteed money, but you get paid significantly more than you would in the G League, and you are within the Blazers organization, right? You are part of the Blazers organization, as opposed to if you're just on the remix without a two-way deal, you're like in the G League player pool happening to play for the remix at the time, right? So this is a way to maybe these guys go back and forth between the G League and the NBA, but they're Blazers players, right? They're functionally Blazers players. That's what the final two-way spot is. So I would say any of these dudes are likely. It kind of depends on how the Blazers want to treat this. There's a couple ways to think about it. One is if you just swing for the player who you think is most likely to hit and be an NBA player, and you don't worry about positional fit, right? Because this is the back half of the roster and someone who's not likely to play, but if they develop, bang, they're an NBA player and they're useful, and you figure out you just want to get NBA players on the team, right? That's the goal. So then you worry about fit and roster crowding at some point in the future. But if they prove that they're balling behind the scenes and they crush in the G League, it's a cheap way to get an NBA player into the system. Or you could think about it as positional depth, right? As if things go wrong, what are the positions we're going to need help with? What are we going to need? The Blazers have currently on two-way contracts Sidi Sissoko, he's kind of like a ball handling, passing, point forward wing. He's probably better on the ball than off the ball, but he's a big, interesting, a little bit of playmaking, a little bit of defensive size, not a great shooter, maybe not a great decision maker with the ball in his hands, but an interesting physical tools with maybe he could put it together type of wing. And then Caleb Love, who's probably more of a combo guard than a true point guard, just is more of a combo guard than a true point guard, but is he could be a ball handler in a break the glass emergency primary creator type of situation, right? That there's a world in which Caleb Love is called into action with that. Although if you were counting on that based on Scoot's injury, I don't think I don't think you're counting correctly. So it's like if they do need positional depth, I think Liam Robbins is the way you lean, right? Because if you just look at the center rotation, it's Donovan Clingan, Rob Williams, who's a huge question mark, not cleared to play, has missed so much time the last 2 years, just a huge question mark. Young Hansen, who's 20 years old, and like, although I think you'd much rather just like play him and let him struggle. He's a question mark. And DUER, who's just like not quite NBA center big enough. They're a little thin at the center spot. So if you were thinking like just positional depth, like just the way for like functional roster building, the best insurance policy is probably Robbins, right? It's probably Robbins. If I had to guess though, it's going to be Beauchamp, because he seems like the player the Blazers are more likely to take a risk on. One, he was highly coveted high school recruit, a 4- and 5-star recruit. He went through, was a first-round pick in the NBA draft. He's been at times during his like teenage run considered to be a pretty clearly an NBA player, an NBA like a NBA prospect through most of his early or late high school career, and then obviously ends up from the G League making the pros. Cook is like more fringy, like true G League guy. Like maybe he's the most functional NBA player in terms of what they see, and they would know more than me because I don't know anything about him other than his box score stats and the fact that he went to college in North Carolina a couple times. So if I had to guess, it'd be Beauchamp. I also know that like Damian Lillard and Marjon Beauchamp have a relationship. Beauchamp was on the Bucks with Dame. I believe that was like sort of Dame was kind of his vet, so to speak, a little bit. So if I had to guess, that would be the guy. If I had to weight him, I'd say Beauchamp, Robbins for positional, for sort of positional insurance, and then Cook last. But again, they gave Cook money first, and so maybe count that how you will. Just like how the Blazers have treated the two-way spots in the past, real quickly before we move on. In the 4 years of the Cronin era, which began in sort of the early part of 2021, he has converted two players from two-way contracts, Trendon Watford, his first year, and then DUER from two-way contracts to NBA deals, right? He said, like, these dudes can really play and we want them on the roster. But like both of those were because of injury situations. They just kind of ran out of bodies, and then all of a sudden those guys earned minutes, right? Like Reith kind of just like had to play because they needed his help, and he was really good early on in his rookie season. And Watford kind of earned Chauncey's trust in a way that was pretty surprising to me as an outside observer. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, he plays a bunch, and one of Cronin's early moves was at the All-Star break of his first year was to convert Trendon Watford to a two-way contract. Then he eventually waived Watford the following year and was like, yeah, we're moving on. But like, it's those two guys have been converted, and then almost no one else who's gotten a two-way contract has played meaningful minutes. It's not exactly a contract you give to someone who you expect to play meaningful minutes. I think that's an important caveat to understand. It's like these are I think a often what people say was like, oh, he's on a two-way deal, he's going to play. I think people always there were many fans last year like anticipating like, when is Bryce McGowan's going to get a chance? Well, never. He just never played. And now he's off the team. Some of it is just like you're kind of just evaluating these guys behind the scenes. You don't intend to play them based on the way you've built your roster, and only if they sort of earn it by virtue of like circumstance. Oh, there's a bunch of injuries, and then, oh, okay, maybe they could be part of some future plans. But I think in general, whoever makes this final two-way spot, do not count on them to be part of the plan, because that has just not traditionally how the Blazers have operated. They have not used the G League to send rookies down there very often, and they have not converted two-way guys to NBA contracts with regularity, and fairly rarely have they converted remix guys to two-way deals and like made them part of the plan. That has also been relatively rare. It's just like not how they've operated. Obviously, like it's relatively new in the era of two-way contracts and the remix existing, such that like it would only take a slight change in their way they've operated to say, oh, well, now they do this. But thus far, that's kind of how they treated these contracts and the remix in general. Okay, I want to talk about a t-shirt Chauncey Billups was wearing because it fulfilled my final wish from Media Day. Join me. Let's talk a wish in the third segment. First, though, let's talk Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching, so it actually tracks your reps, it suggests the right weights, and it can help even correct your form, making every rep safer and smarter. It's got a swivel screen on there, which is a real game changer, so you can go from running on the tread to strength training without missing a beat. Just flip that thing around and keep your workout going. And the personalized class recommendations keep you engaged, and you get workouts tailored to your vibe and energy level each week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. All right, still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked On Blazers. I want to take you back, all the way back to Friday's program. I know it's Wednesday, but if you're an everydayer, you listen to my sort of media day preview, and I mentioned a couple things. I was curious, would they talk about the playoffs? Would they break the facade? Did they talk about the playoffs? No, they kind of hedged on playoff talk. Did they break the facade? Well, Jeremy Grant certainly did. He was very open and honest, a little bit, maybe a little bit negative, but open and honest, like a sort of a refreshing level of like, here's my actual situation. Let me tell you what's up. But my last sort of thing that I was paying attention to, the last thing I'd earmarked, was there like an overarching theme or phrase to the season? Not because I thought it was predictive, but I think it is important when you get early in the season. It is the way the Blazers brand themselves, and the way, not brand, excuse me, it is branding. But what I mean is the way they see themselves at the beginning of the year. How do we see ourselves? And then Chauncey Billups wore a t-shirt today at practice. This day was the first day of practice. I did not attend. Full disclosure, I learned from this watching the Blazers YouTube channel. I got a day job. I'm doing my best. And at practice, reporters asked him, I believe it was Casey Holdall of Trailblazers.com, asked about the t-shirt. And Chauncey Billups turned around and showed them his t-shirt. And the t-shirt, if you're watching on YouTube, shows the following. It is Billups rocking the "Make 'em uncomfortable" slogan on the back of his t-shirt. That's a new one. It's not really new. I think like we want to be uncomfortable to play against is something that Chauncey Billups has said, but Billups called this, that he says every year he comes up with a slogan that is, quote, the barometer for success. And this year's barometer for success is make them uncomfortable. And that is all about this defensive identity the Blazers are adopting. I'm not going to go too long on this because I didn't attend practice, and I respect the work of the folks who do. And so many of them might be writing about this specific t-shirt, and I will let them do so. But I'll just say this. The Blazers are very clearly a team that is built around being good on defense. How capable they are on offense is kind of the big question for them, because I do think they're going to be like, at a minimum, an above average defensive team, and potentially a just straight up very good one. But I think it's very reasonable to think this is one of the 10 best defenses in the league. Assuming everybody is assuming relative health, they have the personnel to be a very, very, very good defensive team. I don't know if they have the personnel to be a particularly good offensive team, but like they can be tough on defense. They can, and I mentioned in yesterday's show, that's like kind of their scheme is not going to change, right? It starts with ball pressure. They're a team that used to press way too much, kind of dialed back the press a little bit last year, but they get up into folks, like ball pressure, particularly ball pressure on the perimeter, putting pressure on the ball and on perimeter players early is like how they disrupt stuff. They want to play physical and apply ball pressure early in the shot clock, force guys to drive into a crowd, and send them towards their rim protector. They switch 1 through 4. They play drop with their big man and Donovan Clingan. They did give up a bunch of shots at the rim last year, but they were pretty good at protecting the rim, and that's kind of their identity, right? Limit perimeter shots. They were very good at limiting threes last year, and among the league leaders in opponent field goal attempts, fewest opponent field goal attempts. And they want to funnel guys to their rim protector. They want to funnel guys to the paint and make them shoot shots in a crowd. And that starts with ball pressure high out on the floor to make getting into perimeter actions and getting into perimeter shots difficult. That is make them uncomfortable. That is the theme. And that is, in my mind, the way the Blazers see themselves. It is, if it's the barometer for success, how uncomfortable is an opponent? Sure. But I think it's more importantly the way the Blazers see themselves. Their identity, the theme of this season is that specifically. The thing that we know we're going to be good at is this pressure defense. That's who we're going to be. That is how we envision ourselves early in the season. I'm using some collective pronouns in the third person, but like it is how they. I guess that's second person. Remove a second person for my real literary heads out there. But like it is how they view themselves, and is this make them uncomfortable? It is not maybe I don't see the slogan as predictive or as some sort of like rallying cry. We're the team that makes the folks the most uncomfortable. But it is how they envision what the best version of themselves is, and the best version of themselves as they view it is a team that is tough to play against because it starts with that defensive identity. A team, I bet they press. I mean, like the Pacers press so dang much in the finals. I bet the Blazers will bring back the press. They'll press more than they did last year. They're going to play that tough perimeter defense. They're probably going to play big to start the game. They're going to be switchy. They're going to be physical, and they're going to hopefully be a team that is like straight up good on defense, right? I do think like at a minimum, you expect them to be an above average defense. And at a maximum, this is one of the 5 best defensive teams in the league. Like I do think there is a world where it all sort of coalesces and that the Blazers are one of the 5 best defensive teams in the league. Like I do think they can be that. I think that's a very, very realistic goal, assuming pretty good health. My last wish, it delivered. Will the Blazers have an overarching theme for the season? We didn't get on media day, but we got a day 1 of practice. Come back for shows the rest of the week. You're listening to Wednesday's program. We'll do one Thursday. We'll do one Friday, 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts. Also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.